All right, everybody, come on. Our meeting starts. What a historic week we have had here in Michigan and the United States of America. And to tell us how exciting it was here and around the country is our own Debbie Dingell. Yeah, we started. Come on up.
All right. So it's been a great week. We're all here because we didn't go to Atlanta. You're doing a great job. I'm sitting. It's been a great week, and I continue to say and to hope that the 12th district will be a way that we show the country the way that we're going to come together, and that we remind people about what this election is really about and what the issues are. So I just want to tell you how proud I am to represent the 12th district, give you maybe, since you guys all cared enough to come when everybody else is in Lansing or out at the farmer's market, which is where you're going to find me in a few minutes to say a couple things. One, I am sorting through because I did not know that the 12th district did endorsements on Thursday night. So yes, I have a communication problem in my office, which I'm just going to acknowledge and fix. We want to make sure that there's a fair process and very well established. Everybody knows what's going to happen, how it happens. I'm going to personally do a resolution for the next meeting so that we have a very tight, at the 12th district. I think that, we were talking about it over here with several people here, and I'm not going to tell Ann Arbor how to run it, but I think the same thing we're going to do with the 12th, which is that once we know who the candidates are, there should be written notification and various other communication ways to written totally. I know young people, they're generational, don't always look at the written, and we need to use social media, and we need to make sure that the meeting notices tell people that screening's going on, but we want to make sure that we're open and inclusive and everybody is provided in it. There are 5 of us who are not old but seasoned who were talking about, we don't even know what the rules are. Do you enjoy, for either Ann Arbor or the 12th, about whether you endorse in contested primaries and don't, and I think I'm going to take it on at the 12th, make sure those rules are clearly understood, and I'll tell poor Mike Henry that I said that, a group of us had the discussion, it should be clear for Ann Arbor too, though I do know he's going to get the Ann Arbor City Council. I think he's looking at doing a forum of some kind with the city council candidates there. For the presidential, I'm going to tell you guys just point blank, I think it was a great week. I think the momentum's turned. We're all talking about progressive issues that we care about. We understand the importance of pulling together. And I feel better this week than I did a week ago. But as someone pointed out to me, because everybody's so used to my normally being, I think Donald Trump can win, that there are a lot of weeks between now and November, and we're really going to have to work hard. I don't know if everybody focused on the fact that in March, everybody's used to the Detroit districts, the 13th and the 14th, having the highest voter turnout of Democratic votes. The 14th was number 1, the 12th was number 2, and then the 13th. We have those Democratic votes, and we've really got to make sure that we're turning them out. And we know that Hillary Clinton can't win, and I don't want to, the Bernie people, I hope he's going to stay engaged through the convention. I know the issues that he cares about, he's going to be fighting for. I think he's such a critical part of this party. We all got to come together. So she's got the votes, but I don't want to in any way, shape, or form disrespect the Bernie Sanders supporters here, because we all do have to come together, and his issues really, really do matter. So as I'm having this discussion, it's an important part to me. But neither candidate, Democrats or Republicans, can win without Michigan. The delegation had a meeting with John Podesta, Rabhi, so the top, and a bunch of other people. And John Podesta said point blank, we can't win without Michigan, and Donald Trump can't win without Michigan. And we do not have a significant Hispanic population in this state like a number of other states do. And since he's done such a good job of winning Hispanic votes this week, I never thought that someone would attack a judge because, I mean, what I am really frightened about, and I'm going to tell you, it really bothers me when I have to look at you and tell you all what Mitt Romney is saying is something, you know, it's true. I mean, what Donald Trump is doing is taking racism into levels that we have never seen. I mean, and when someone like Mitt Romney is saying that, we've really got to pay attention to it. But Donald Trump is going to target this state. And I can't tell you how many people, many of us know in this room, that are people that we respect, that they're like, I'm voting for Donald Trump because I'm tired of everybody, I can't stand anybody, and we just need to shake the system up. And when you go back and you say, but do you know he's this and do you know he's that, they're like, yep, but we just want to shake the system up. And that's what we've got to worry about in Michigan. We've got to turn out the votes. So we got to make sure that people that have traditionally voted with us don't just decide to stay home. And Donald Trump is targeting a whole group of people that don't normally turn out. So I said to some people are mad that I say that I think Donald Trump could win. And people were maybe trying to say that I shouldn't be saying it. And I looked at everybody in the room and said, nobody's going to script me. Nobody's going to tell me what to say. I'm going to keep saying what I have been saying in very short, sweet Donald Trump language, because remember, he talks at 4th grade level. And that is, yes, Donald Trump could win. Because one of the problems was that, you know, there were people, I was not, you know that, I knew that Bernie Sanders was doing very well in Michigan. You saw it for a couple of years, and if you were at the grassroots level here. But a lot of people really believed that Hillary Clinton was 28 points up, and people think their votes didn't matter, and they didn't turn out. And we really need people scared to death that Donald Trump could win, and everybody needs to understand that their vote matters. So the 12th district is going to be critical to that, and we have always, not that I'm competitive or proud, but I asked Tim Grimal, who, you know, he looks at all the night, and Jeff, add to this if you, but who has the best program in terms of helping the state legislators? And Tim said, you know, and I said, look, I need to know the truth, because if people are doing things better in other places, we want to know it. And Tim said, you know, we do, but we pull all the legislators together, we all work together. I want to get the experts in to say, I mean, just because we've always done it this way doesn't mean it's how we should do it this time. And I want the people that understand social media, that understand the trends, to tell us this is what you need to do to run a campaign. The other thing that we need to know is that the legislature needs 10 seats to take back the House. Is that right? 9. But there's a focus of 10. 5 of them are within the greater 12. 2 of them are really keeping Gretchen Driscoll's seat, and then when you go downriver, we need to take the 23rd back from the Republican. And then there's a seat in Monroe. There's the work that the 12th district does can really determine what happens to the state house. So we need to be proud of who we are, and we want to do the best job of any district in the state, but just because we always did it that way doesn't mean it's how we should do it this time. We want to bring in the experts, have them help us write a plan that's a strong plan, and we need to work together to kick ass, turn out votes, make sure this state does not vote for Donald Trump, and help take the legislature back.
Debbie?
Yes.
In the primary, the Clinton campaign did not campaign seriously here, as we know.
Yes, we
They
do.
abandoned us with the results that were obvious. What makes you believe that the Clinton campaign is going to take Michigan seriously in the fall, considering that we voted blue every year since 1988?
So, I'm not going to, I am a bitch. I want you all know that when I get mad, I can be
You're a
bitchy.
bitch.
And I am being very bitchy about this. I'm not going to lie to you. I was very blunt in that. I'm not going to tell you I have 100% confidence. I do believe, I mean, I'm just reporting to you what happened. And John Podesta in that meeting said, we can't win without keeping Michigan. Trump can't win without getting Michigan. They know that he's focused on here. I've said this to you all 100 times when we talk about, Iowa and New Hampshire not going first and people not understanding what it means about, resources. And remember, we were a state they were worried about the year McCain ran, which was, 8 years ago, Jeff? And we were at play, and then McCain decided to pull out resources, and we all saw what happens immediately. And one of the problems for Michigan is that, you need to get national funding. And we don't have a governor's race, and we don't have a Senate race, which has always been, so the last election, the senatorial campaign, and the gubernatorial, because Mark was had a lot of money that they put in. So John Podesta said that they were looking at putting 150 people on the ground. I quite frankly, because I don't trust people, and I'm seasoned. I've seen, I've also said to people, everybody says we don't want outsiders. I ran the Gore campaign here in 2000, as you all know, and I welcomed outsiders because outsiders have the ears of the people that are actually spending the money and making the decisions. And we need to make sure that people at that level are focused on Michigan being competitive. So right now, they're putting staff in here. But if numbers change, I'm not going to lie to you guys. We've all we're seasoned. We have a lot more elections, though I think this is the most important election. But if for any reason, now the other thing to really look at is the polling was so wrong here. Though I could also say to you, the two pollsters that were saying she was 28 points up aren't exactly pollsters, I always believe either. But that if things change and they decide that they're safe and that they've got to put their resources in a Florida is going to be key again. It's going to be another close state. If they make the decision that we're safe and resources need to go someplace, that's what's going to happen. So we've got to organize for the House in two ways. One, if we're lucky and they stay here, that we'll have those resources to turn out votes. And if they poll, that we still are investing in those House seats to get the voter turnout that we need to win those seats back. And I'm going to be very pragmatic. I'm not going to dream. I don't trust anybody. And that's how I think we got to plan. Think that's unfair, Jeff? That was first, then it was after.
First, congratulations on being designated as one of the 25 hardest working members of the House. Second, if you say you're unscripted, do we need to get you a teleprompter? But third, in the 2014 election, there was very little coordination from the MDP to the counties because the MDP put 3 offices here and never told us. And so the question
I am so annoyed. So let me tell you how I'm
coordination.
So you need to look forward, not back. So I'm trying to do that though. You can get my blood pressure up very fast if we're going to talk about what happened last time. I mean, they never told, they didn't have my signs. But they wanted my money. So I get very angry about that. But to ensure that I'm going to really, I want to get it done, and I'm going to do what it takes to get done. So I met with Roy Gamble. The UAW is one of the people that will invest and put a lot of money here. I've talked to MEA. I've talked to other institutional players. And I told the Clinton campaign that the UAW would be, tell them where the 12th district offices would be, because I figured we would get an institutional player that they won't screw with to make sure that we're getting what we need to. I'm just going to be that blunt. So you guys, I tell you everything. I'm a very transparent soul. So I thought that was a good way to, and Mike Stone can be very tough and was very happy that I gave him that. So we delivered that. And by the way, they didn't play here. When you watch the news and you were hearing, I was the person that predicted it was close or going to lose, And they had a two-city strategy. And their two-city strategy was Detroit and Flint. And they didn't even work Flint. And, you know, they didn't get the normal 80 or 90%. They were arrogant. We never had, Bernie Sanders came to this district 10 times. He worked it. He did mail. He did doors. He did phone calls. I begged, pleaded, and cried. And the one day, they call me at 11 o'clock at night and say, will you take Bill Clinton to the grocery store? And I'm like, this is a joke, right? But when I said, can I at least take him to the Ann Arbor's farmer market? Wouldn't that have made a difference if people knew that he cared enough to go, no, it's too far? Well, I've got to tell you, I've been very clear with pedestrian. No one's going to screw around with me that way in this general, that they need us. And I have a voicemail that John said, you're right, I know you're grumpy, give us time, we're listening. So I promise you that, you know, there are two sides to Debbie, and the one that can be very intense is in her very intense mode. And I have no patience for people who want titles and are up in the ethosphere. I'm listening to the grassroots, like you guys are listening to the grassroots. And we know it's competitive. We know there are a lot of people that are unhappy. We got to pull everybody together, and we got to figure out how we're going to communicate with them. And even people who are unhappy, we have to remind them what this election's about and what's going to happen to this country if somebody who is saying the things that he is saying about race and religion and gets elected, or think about him with his finger on a button, a nuclear button. We've got to make sure we are touching everybody. It's going to be one at the grassroots. It's not going to be run by people who are more interested in looking good or getting a soundbite than like understanding what it takes to organize.
This is a nuts and bolts question. Approximately how many full-time people are needed to do the 12th right, and approximately how many people are needed to do Michigan right?
So that's what we're working on right now. So when I told you that I'm bringing in the experts, I think that, you know, we've had a great GOTV. Everybody knows. Does it work? I think this is, I love everybody that's come before us and done what we've done. But does having all those vans work? Is the work being done in the right area? And one of the things that we really do know that we need to do that we have not, as a 12, spent as much time or money on is persuasion. Messaging this time really matters. What do we need to do for field in September and October in terms of doors for a slate candidate? What do we need to be doing on social media? We need the experts that, look, this has become a high technology targeting, and we are getting the people that supposedly, I'm assuming we can trust somebody, will tell us, and then I'll have the answer to that in the next couple of weeks. And we'll have, again, as we've always done, but we get all the legislation we met last time, and I think we were better organized than anybody. Jeff was part of it. We met every other week and then every week, and we all talked about what we needed to be doing, and when we get that plan, you know me, I share it with everybody. So everybody, we haven't written the plan because we need people to tell us what we really need to do to turn out those votes. Where are they? How do we target? What do we need to do for the state races? Hopefully we don't, when is the coordinator getting into the state? We don't even know who's running the coordinator for the state yet. Who's going to be and when we say 150 people, some of those 150 bodies will really be coordinated. How many are we getting in the 12th? What do we need to, hopefully that will gel in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Would you say that's a good, would you agree with that? I'm looking at Jeff because Jeff's as much a part of this. We're going to work with the legislators and Tim Greimel, and that's really important that we've got to really, we can win the House back with work that's going to happen here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Oh,
one
do you have
more
another
question.
question?
I just wanted to know specifically how you think we are going to bring the party together, because I've worked with the Bernie campaign here in Southeast Michigan, and I know that the supporters are not buying the fear tactic of the fear of the Trump planet as a good enough reason to side with the candidate that we don't support. So how specifically?
So I agree. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
See, kid myself. I've been in a lot of union halls talking to a lot of union workers too. There's two different categories, by the way. There are there's some Bernie people that understand that. We gotta find a way that everybody that got excited and got engaged stays engaged. And we also have the union workers who are voting for Trump, and then a lot of people don't know that Donald Trump came to Michigan. I got excited when he talked about currency manipulation, because I talk about it till I'm blue in the face, so do union presidents, and nobody listens. Donald Trump talks about it, and people suddenly understand that other governments fight for their workers and will use policy tools that they have to help create jobs. So I got excited about that, but then he came to Michigan and didn't like what somebody said to him. It was actually a UAW worker. And he says, well, we're not going to build auto plants in Michigan. We're going to take those jobs and go someplace else in the country where the jobs they pay less. And then when they don't have any jobs, they'll be happy to get any job even though it pays a lot less. People don't know that that's what he said when he came to Michigan last August. We need to that's a different voter. I'm excited by Donald Trump. I think that in the end, we really have to talk to people about the issues. All of us, have to make sure that the issues that people talked about during this campaign that Bernie brought up, the Wall Street issues, even the student loans, Hillary really, healthcare, which is one of my passions, that we need to talk about what will happen. And not currency manipulation. Donald Trump's at the same place. Many of us are. But that's not a man that will target people because of religion. For all of us, this anti-Muslim rhetoric, those who haven't learned from history are doomed to repeat it. And we've got this community. We need to do a far better job of talking about what would happen, not by fear, but what the real implications would be to this country if somebody who is saying the things that he is saying were to become president, and what would happen to people every day.
And what about the implications of what might happen to Ms. Clinton with her investigations, her emails, her
We got to do a better
Panama
job.
Papers, or all of that?
Right now, we're down to two people. We got Hillary and we got Donald Trump. I believe her when they say that they believe they're totally clean, that investigation's not going to come. If that comes, we're going to have to look at it and be cold and brutal about it. But I think I'm very honest. I'm very strong in a union hall about why you shouldn't vote for Donald Trump. And I've known Hillary. I've known Hillary for 30 years. I know she's a really good person. I've worked with her. I also know she gets very defensive. And I know that everybody doesn't see the real Hillary and we've got to do a better job. I think a lot of people have seen the Hillary that I've known between the speech she gave last week, and I missed it. I have still this weekend have to watch the YouTube speech. And I'm not voting for Hillary Clinton because she's a woman. I support women. I've had a ton of discrimination in my life. But Hillary Clinton, I believe, is the strongest candidate for the job and will do the best job. But we've got to help convince you and others
Right,
that that's
I don't
true.
believe she
I know,
will.
and I got to figure out how to do a better job of that. And I'm very honest that I haven't figured out that. And we gotta, and I can tell you, I do know her. I really do know her. I've known her since I married John, and we were both political spouses that actually, had a brain, and we both would be introduced, we're these appendages, and a woman in her own right. But I do know that she can be defensive, and that it instills in people questions and she's got to be very strong herself and help convince you and others. And we got to tell you the stories we know of her, of why I really do trust her and the sides I've seen of her. But that's a very serious challenge we have. And I'm the first to say it. So.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
For me?
Yeah.
Yes.
What's your name?
Stephanie.
Stephanie. You're not involved with the Ann Arbor Democratic Party forum? Because I've been posting a lot of things on the Ann Arbor Democratic, some people may have read some of my stuff. My argument would be for you is that I really believe I started off a Bernie Sanders supporter. I've always been a Hillary Clinton supporter. But I started getting behind her because of all the attacks against her, which we know. I mean, our generation knows about that whole thing. Now, I know that's not convincing, but here would be my argument for Hillary, for Bernie Sanders and Hillary's forces to join. The future of the Democratic Party is going to be Bernie's political revolution. I really believe that.
We have to make sure it happens.
Right. We have to make sure it happens, and we have to make sure it happens by having somebody like Hillary in, who's much more amenable to his ideas. They're a lot closer than anything that the Republicans. Now, that may not be satisfying for you, but, you know, many of us baby boomers in here, we've waited 30, 40 years for some of this. And I would just ask a little patience from the millennials, that these kinds of revolutions don't happen overnight, okay? You have to build an infrastructure for years to make this happen. And so that's what I'm arguing. I just posted on the forum, I posted this morning a thing by Elizabeth Warren supporting Hillary and why she supports Hillary, and that Hillary she's basically taking the case that I've made. And to bring Bernie Sanders people on board. You know, I was a George McGovern supporter in my first presidential election.
Yes.
And I ended up supporting people that I didn't necessarily want to, like even Bill Clinton. Okay? Because I was far left of that. But geez, when I considered where we've been, you know, since then, where we could have been had we gone with some of these Republicans and like with Ronald Reagan. I mean, he was a wonderful person. People liked him. But he just took us to the wrong places. And now we have a person that's not only, in my opinion, a demagogue, but the policies that he's supporting, you know, have been tried and they failed. And he wants to bring us back to that? And so think about the long term. Here's burners talk about their children, you know, they want their grandchildren to have a future to believe in. And I believe in his future. But we Americans aren't ready for that yet. They're not ready for those kind of drastic changes that he advocates. But in time, we will be able to convince them. And the way we do that is to support the Democratic Party, because that's the way to the future. It's not abandoning Hillary or, God forbid, taking the Republican position.
Well, the thing that I think people aren't realizing is that the millennials who support Bernie could care less about party affiliation
I know that.
or title. So that joining the Democratic Party is irrelevant to a lot of these voters.
I know this is.
I just want to say for the record that I voted for Hillary over Obama.
I know.
Before, so
So what we really need you. Help us hear what people think, and help us talk about her so you see the side we do. And it's not a perfect world, but I really, I respect you, and I respect the millennials, and we need to bring them in. And how do we talk to them so they know they matter? We need them. How do we change the party so you're, by the way, I agree, they don't care about the party.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of think the two-party system is broken anyway, but when I was your age was because I was a militant Republican, and now I'm a Dingell Democrat. And by the way, Bill Milligan's probably more liberal than, you know, a lot of Democrats, you know. So it's a label. But what we need is we really need for everybody to know they matter. You need to help us. What do we need to talk about? How do we give people information about Hillary so we help them understand why we think she is better than Donald Trump and what the implications are? And how do we address issues they can care about and make a difference and start to bring that change? That's what we need you. And we want you, and you need to help people like us do what we gotta do.
And not just at the national level, because we're obviously in this state, many of the things that we're all suffering from are happening in Lansing. And so we need to bring Bernie people in to vote. I mean, they may be put off. I mean, everything Debbie said I agree with, but they may be put off by the presidential election, but we don't want that put off to put them out of the system now, put them out of politics or out of caring about issues. Because our issues here in Michigan are Michigan issues, and we need to change what's going on in Lansing. So, I mean, that's another tactic, I think, in terms of talking to young people. Okay, the presidential election didn't go your way this time, but that doesn't mean it can't in 4 years. That's one thing I've learned by working with this group of people. We had a massive get out the vote effort last election, and it didn't work. But people didn't go home. I mean, it took me about 6 months to recover, but people didn't go home. They said, okay, that didn't work, we gotta do something else.
So we really need
So you gotta jump back into it.
You care about issues that are very, we gotta make change at the grassroots level. One of the things that's very interesting to me is in the last week, I can't tell you how many people have said to me that, I mean, people, the Dan Gilberts, the David Fitt, they're big Republicans who said they had no idea how much the DeVos's controlled the state legislature. And it's making them pay attention to the need for some of the things that we even care about. And how do we change it so somebody doesn't own a state legislature? I've heard that from 6 major Republicans in the last week. That's significant. But, you know, when I was younger, I didn't get involved in politics because of a candidate. I got involved because of issues. I mean, first, when I got my first paycheck and I was outraged that it all went to, that I couldn't vote. I mean, I organized across the state. But then healthcare and the fact that women weren't included in any federally funded health research. We need to care about issues and you can make a difference when you build the coalition. It's got to be build it around the state. That's what we need to do, is to get people that you really do care about. You care about community. You care about quality of life. You care about the issues that are going to impact you for the rest of your life. So let's build that coalition and go get the change we need to bring. And when change happens at the grassroots level, you really can bring about change and make the state a better state. The way the state's now, a state that could poison a city isn't okay. So let's work together to bring about that change.
Ellie had a question, and then your question, and then I think we're going to wrap up this part because we've got, we could talk to Debbie probably all day, but she's got things to do, and we've got our state rep candidate forum. So Ellie, and then, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to add to the conversation that this isn't just an election about the presidency, it's quite literally an election about the Supreme Court. And we've seen what the Supreme Court has done to our democracy over the past 20 years, Citizens United gutting the Voting Rights Act. I mean, Garland's not going to get a confirmation vote before the election, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't never say never. I mean, that's the one thing, anybody who says never in this election cycle should know that that's...
The polls jumped 10 points.
Yeah, but with this election, we have an opportunity, depending on whether we elect Hillary or Trump, to either roll back Citizens United or double down on it. To have a court that's going to be friendly to environmental regulations or gut the Clean Power Plan. I mean, and it's not just becoming 4 years, that's next 30 years. So I don't know if that's persuasive at all.
Okay.
Back when Snyder first ran, there was a lot of talk about what's the harm of having a competent businessman, kind of moderate, said some things we like, take over the state government. That's how we got Flint. There's a lot of difference between how the two parties operate. It's not a question of whether you care about parties as such. It's a question of when you go down the issues, where do you end up? There is a libertarian site. You're going to be getting a ton of information to libertarians when you use it because it quiz you on all your various issues. But it allows you to see where you fall with respect to various politicians. It's I stand with. I think I got it right. But it's worth doing that just to see where you fall. I am a staunch Hillary supporter. I really dislike Bernie rather intensely. But on the issues, I'm 97% Bernie and 96% Hillary.
Okay, I think that's it for today. Debbie, thanks so much for coming, as always.
Thank you.
All right, thanks very much for that conversation. So that could go will continue. But we do want to get on to our forum related to our two candidates running for state representative because they've been waiting patiently and they have other things to do this afternoon also. So I would like to have Jelani come up. He's going to introduce our candidates and be the moderator for this forum.
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. It is not.
Okay.
It is not.
Yeah, Jelani. Woo!
Hello, everybody. I've been tasked with moderating this discussion between our two candidates, and so I'm just going to read out some of the rules so that we just sort of have a basis for how we're going to operate today, and then we'll go from there. It says on the first thing, I will be the moderator. Check. Nora, would you like to give some opening remarks about the forum, or would you like?
No, you're on.
Oh, excellent. Well, I already gave my opening remarks, so that works as well. Speaking order will be determined by playing cards or by another random method. Does either candidate mind being it done by alphabetical order?
Go for it.
Seeing no objection, alphabetical order and choosing who speaks.
That's fine with me.
All right. Each candidate has the opportunity to present a 90-second opening statement and 90 seconds to answer the first question from the moderator. The moderator will ask a series of questions for the forum. Each candidate will have a 1 minute to reply with a 15-second warning given. The moderator may ask follow-up questions, and candidates will have 30 seconds to answer follow-up questions. Candidates are encouraged to respond directly to the moderator or to the audience, but not to other candidates. Engagement between candidates is highly discouraged, and response time fairness shall be managed at the discretion of the moderator. And if time allows, the moderator will select questions from the audience, and candidates are encouraged to blah, blah, blah. So yeah, all right, well, with that said, we have the rules, and I would invite our two candidates up, Yousef, Rabhi, and Steve Kwasny.
We'll do a lot of blah, 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 that's for sure.
Excellent.
I'd rather sit next to you than like on the other side of the table.
Oh yeah, please. So this is where you can have your opening statements, and since we are going to do it by alphabetical order, we're going to have Steve Kwasny go first to give an opening statement, and you will have 90 seconds.
Morning. My name is Stephen Kwasny, and I'm running to be your next state representative. The Congresswoman's right. We've lost our message. I remember a few months ago, maybe even a year, being in this very room, a lot of people angry. This room was packed. And there was someone standing here, his name was Lon, and we were just describing how we couldn't work together. And that was absolutely awful. I was a part of an operation that just couldn't get off the ground. And the reason it couldn't get off the ground running is because we didn't have a strong enough message. And when we look at the top of the ticket, that always forms the way we shape politics downhill, is at the top of the ticket we've seen messages of hate, fear, racism, bigotry, oppression. And that's not a good headlines to have. And so what I'm asking for our community to try out is another message, a message of hope. One where we can try to solve an issue that's plaguing our politics for a very long time, and that's the one of money.
15 seconds.
Money has been buying politicians for a long time, and they might not buy the politicians that you like, but they definitely buy the politicians that you don't like. Our environment gets sold out, our education system gets sold out, and...
Great. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today, and thank you to the Ann Arbor Democrats for having this debate. Jamie, I'm sorry in advance, I will be standing up, so we'll have to adjust the camera just a little bit. So I wanted to just briefly introduce myself. I know most of you, but my name is Yousef Rabhi. I've been a Washtenaw County Commissioner. This is my 6th year, my 3rd term. I served as chair of the board 2013 and 2014, and together as a community, we got a lot of great work done. I want to go off the theme of talking about what was discussed today, talking about the Democratic Party's message. I actually have a slightly different take on the way things are going. I believe that our deficiency is not in our message, but in our vision. Our vision for what we want this world to look like, what we want our state to look like. What we want is a state that respects everyone's right to be a human being and to love who they love. Our vision is to expand the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act to include everyone. Our vision is for equal pay for equal work. Our vision is for an environment that is healthy, Great Lakes where the water is clean, our air that we can breathe.
15 seconds.
This is the Michigan that we want, the Michigan that we deserve. And I know that together we can make that happen, because together we've done so much good work already for our community. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We'll just start with you. Why are you running?
That's actually a really good question. I am running for office, started a long time ago. My journey started when I was 3 years old in preschool, down at Maltz Creek, pulling out trash and studying the sediment and the pollution, and understanding what it was that impacted our environment was actually impacts upstream. Understanding the large-scale issues that impact the very smallest creatures in our environment. That ethic is what inspired me to go into the environmental field. That ethic is what inspired me to become an activist, to fight for social change while I was in college, to get arrested, fighting for workers' rights halfway across the world. That is why I got involved as an activist. That's why I got involved as an activist in this party, as a member of this board in 2008 and 2009. And that's why I've been fighting for this community for the last 6 years. I've seen what Lansing is capable of, the damage that they're able to do to local governments, to communities, and ultimately to the citizens whose services we deliver. So I want to run for state representative because I believe in a better Michigan, because I want to serve my community, and because I know that together we can move Michigan forward.
So I'm running to try to get a conversation on something different, something that we haven't tested out. And it's how we shape our community message. And it's asking every single person in the community what our message should be. Clearly, everyone's going to support stronger schools, stronger environment, stronger economy, and civil rights for everything. But at the same time, they're going to have to believe in those people that are trying to deliver it. And lately, that we haven't been getting that. I'm running to try to give people another option and maybe a little bit of an inspirational hope, because when we have a strong grassroots campaign, nothing can't be beat. And it's trying to emulate this campaign in other communities and see what changes and see how the state evolves, because time and time again we come so close to bridging the gap in the state legislature, and until we find that one niche that's going to drive Democrats from across the state to turn out and vote, we're going to be sitting having the same conversations over and over again. And so I'm running to try to be an inspirational hope, to show that individuals don't have to be super connected, they don't have to know everyone in their community, and don't even have to be super wealthy to run, because a lot of good people do not seek public office because they fear fundraising. They hate asking people for money, and I do too.
Thank you very much for both of your answers. I'm going to start with you. Every month, state legislators have 5 bills that they can introduce into the legislature. And I want to know what would be the first 5 bills that you would introduce in your first month in office.
That's a good question. So, the first 5 bills that I would introduce is one, to scale back SB 661. That is the bill that doubled all campaign contributions back in 2012. The next would be a repeal of SB 571, when the courts determined that you can't silence public officials. You know you're in trouble with that type of legislation. The third would be legislation to introduce for K-12 education an increase in allocation funding for counselors. What I see in the educational field is we lack counselors to open up the world to our young. And I believe that if we open up the world, show them career paths, job training, community colleges, universities on a more interpersonal level, we'd have higher success in our K-12 education. The fourth would be to stop pipeline number 5 and try to shut that down. At least try to find a way to allocate resources so Enbridge can start building another pipeline, because we got to get rid of that thing. That is our greatest disaster waiting to happen. It threatens all our Great Lakes, and water at the end of the day is our greatest resource. And the fifth that I would introduce is, it would be, I talked to a nice young woman this week, and she told me how devastating HEMSTEP was. And to introduce that legislation to get rid of standardized testing that targets teachers would be an ultimate pride and joy to try to champion that in the legislature.
So, as I alluded to earlier, I believe in a state where we have equity, where we have an environment that works, where we have an economy that works for everyone, and an public education system that is well funded for our kids and our teachers. But I also realize that in order to get there, in order to get to our vision, there are certain things that we first need to do to make sure that our system, our process, is fundamentally fair and treats everyone with respect and dignity. So the first 5 bills that I would introduce are, number 1, as my friend here mentioned, a reduction in the campaign finance contribution limits so that PACs are reined in our state. The role of money is outsized in our campaign process in our state. We need to correct that. I would introduce independent audits of our lobbyist expenditures in Lansing. Right now, our lobbyists are running the show, and I don't think that's acceptable. I think that we need to make sure that we rein in those expenses and understand exactly what's going on up there. We need to reform our redistricting process so that districts are drawn fairly, so that the citizens can elect their representatives instead of a representative picking which voters they want. We need to talk about an elimination of the revolving door, a law that would prevent a legislator from voting on a piece of legislation that they would then stand to gain from financially once they're out of office. We need to end that practice. And finally, I would push for legislation that would require everyone that's running for office at the state level to disclose their finances, disclose their financial assets. You know, what are they invested in? Who are they connected to financially? Many other states have that requirement. Michigan should as well. We were rated 50th out of 50 in terms of our transparency and our democratic accountability. That's step number 1. Those are the first 5 bills that I'd introduce.
You know, one of the things that I didn't hear from your priorities, at least specifically, was talking about infrastructure and the role that it plays. And we can see that either in our roads, our bridges, we can see it in issues related to Flint when it comes to water. We can see it when it comes to here in Ann Arbor and Washington County, talking about trying to clean up the dioxin, and that's sort of all issues related to infrastructure. How would you make infrastructure a part of your platform?
My first?
Yeah.
The one thing that I forgot to mention too is a repeal of the emergency manager law. What we need to do is focus on empowering local government. Local government is the backbone of our democracy. We need to make sure the local government has the funding necessary to provide the infrastructure services that they need. That's the angle that I would take. Local government is the building block of our democracy. Local government is falling short because of our state finance system, because of the way that the state has hamstrung our local governments. It's a fabricated crisis that we're in right now, and we need to change that.
You can't really solve our problems in 10 because we've been getting beaten back repeatedly. Just yesterday, the state introduced a 30-year long-term plan for water, and it includes the water infrastructure element. One of the things that weren't in that 30-year plan was talking about Pipeline 5. I don't know how you come out with a PR pipeline or a PR message that doesn't include Pipeline 5 in a 30-year plan. When it comes to water infrastructure, I've been in conversations with many city and state officials that handle water infrastructure. And the one things that we got to improve is asset management, everything underneath. It's street mapping, and that's how we're going to solve community
So the
problems.
next question is, as a topical question. As both of you know, the state legislature just passed a bill related to Detroit public schools, and it was passed under questionable circumstances. I would just like both of you to sort of talk about your feelings of both about the legislation that was passed, and also talk about the circumstances that it was passed under and how you would respect the democratic process differently.
I share the view of hundreds of conversations we've been having in the community. Our public education is under attack and it's getting bought out. One of the most disappointing elements in that package of bills that was passed is the mandate where uncertified teachers can teach in classrooms. Is that who you really want educating your children? A lot of people don't know about that. And there's even a pathway for them to gain their teacher certification by just winging it in the classroom. Give it 3 years and we'll give you a teacher's certificate, and you can go to another public or charter school. And when they depack, and what charter schools do is eventually they fail, they rebrand themselves with a different name, and so now they'll have those teacher certificates when they rebrand themselves, and they just keep siphoning good money out of public schools that have to have certification, that have to have strong people in those communities. One of the things that we have to look at, though, is we have to look at exploring readjusting Proposal A from 1994, because Proposal A wasn't designed to give long-term funding needs to education communities. And when we look at that, we have to be careful when we're talking about it and unpacking the solutions, because a lot of educational systems don't have a baseline funding, and you're watching public schools close all over across the state, and that's a tragedy.
So with regard to the specific instance the other day, this was yesterday, and the bill that was passed, the first thing that I would say, I agree with what was said earlier regarding teachers should be qualified. The other thing that we need to talk about too is charter schools, specifically for-profit charter schools, which were not reined in at all under this bill that was passed. And they can now, there's no restrictions, there's no limits. Charter schools can open up anywhere in Detroit. It's unacceptable. What we are doing to that city for-profit education is the most ridiculous thing that I've heard of. And I think that we need to just go the other direction with that and remove those provisions. The bill itself was passed under very questionable circumstances. When you are wielding the gavel as the Speaker of the House, you are not wielding the gavel for the Republican Party or the DeVos family or the governor. You are wielding the gavel for the people of Michigan. And as such, you must respect the democracy that we live in. What the Republicans have shown is blatant disregard for our democracy. They have shown that blatantly that they will not uphold the democratic process. As Democrats, let us make sure that if we take back the House in 2016, we hold ourselves to a higher standard. That we hold ourselves to the standard that understands that we don't work just for the Democratic Party, we work for the people of Michigan. Republicans, Democrats, everyone. We together make this state a great place. We don't do it divided. We don't do it when we shut voices down in the communities that the bills are impacting, or anyone for that matter.
Time. All right. Well, I thank you both for answering those set of questions, and I would like to now open up to the floor. And we have right here.
I'd like to double back on the infrastructure question, because I don't think either of you really addressed it. Why wouldn't you reopen the package that was passed that goes out to 2021 and get a democratic solution? I mean, I understand all the equity questions because they're questions at the heart, but to deal with the people, the broad base of people in the state, and our terrible infrastructure everywhere, if we actually got a democratic solution, or if we got the House back and forced a democratic solution, I mean, wouldn't that help us all, both as a party and the state?
Oh yeah, I'll let you go first.
Well, thanks, Doug, for bringing that up. So I didn't mention it because I only had 30 seconds, but that is an abomination, that bill that was passed, and I think it needs to be repealed entirely. We need to find a different solution. That is not only not a democratic solution, that is a regressive solution. It's a solution that shrinks the size of government and hamstrings our state from being able to provide services into the future. That is short-sighted and goes against every principle that we should be living for in a democracy. So that needs to be repealed, and we need to find a different solution for that. And what I was saying earlier was talking about being in the front lines of local government and seeing our difficulties with funding infrastructure, whether you're in Flint or in Washtenaw County, two very different ends of the spectrum in terms of income. Local government in our state is on the precipice of financial disaster. It doesn't matter how rich or poor the community is. Our funding system does not work, and we need to find a new way to fund our local government. We need to provide our local governments with a menu of options so they're not just relying on property taxes, which are limited by Headley and Proposal A, but other sources of revenue as well, so that we can keep up with our roads, so that we can keep up with our water and sewer and our infrastructure in general. We need to focus on that.
It's a great question, Doug. I believe the political will is going to shift very rapidly over the next few years, and the priority is going to be infrastructure for everyone, the people. Nowadays, when you look at Flint, they have the best water testing in the nation, which is actually incredible because they've seen so much despair from their infrastructure. I've been talking to activists, I've been talking to people that have been working since day one to try to shed light on that situation, and they don't have a lot to hang their hat up on. And so at least that's one positive thing, because at the end of the day, what I like to say in 2021 is Flint is the model of how we solve infrastructure problems, because the EPA rates any parts of lead in water is unacceptable. And right now our action level is at 15 parts per billion, and we're discussing maybe 10 parts per billion. That's going to change a lot of desires. Every time I talk to someone, a civil engineer, we have to make sure that these parts are made in America. Every time the governor goes overseas, I'm fearful that a deal is going to get cut, and next thing you know, we're getting galvanized pipes from overseas, and that this won't work over here. And so when we look at infrastructure, water is definitely the priority. We're going to have to look at making a smarter grid for power, and we're going to have to look at expanding broadband communications because we lack desperately in the state with high-speed internet.
What strategy would you adopt in relation to the redistricting issues that are coming up? And
a lot of people ask about that. That's a great question. And so when it comes to redistricting, it's going to be tough because whoever's going to be in power is going to want to keep power. It's always been that way. So when we look at redistricting, we have to find a different way to beat redistricting. And the way to beat redistricting is to churn out the votes, because districts are drawn on us only churning out 30% of the voters, 10% of the voters, even in some cases 50% of the voters. If you increase the voters, you beat the redistricting. And when you constantly look at polls for the last 5 years, our polls have been off, our metrics have been off, our questions are bad. But when we look at the strategy, it's going to be a dogfight. It's gonna be tough because everyone wants to feel secure. No one wants to compete within their district. They want to have their district, and they want to not have to worry about it. And so what we have to do is drive political will to increase competition, and so that nearly all the districts in our 110 House legislature are competitive. That's going to be a challenge because we've naturally segregated ourselves as a society, and we're more comfortable with living with people that are like-minded. And so when we look at the strategy is that we're going to have to form a nonpartisan commission and just hope for the best. But at the end of the day, if you want to beat redistricting, you have to churn up the vote, because if you churn up 60, 75% of the vote one election, you'll change the way government thinks instantly.
Time. And I apologize for missing your 15-second warning, so that's my fault. So I want to let you know.
No, it's okay. We still love you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But I want to let you know that happened. I do apologize.
Okay, so my answer is pretty simple. We need an independent redistricting process in Michigan. As long as whoever's in power controls the process, there is going to be vested interest in how the districts are drawn. That needs to change fundamentally, and that is one of those core issues that I've talked about. Those are the things that we need to accomplish before we can start to address some of those social issues. We need to change our process so that it's fair, so that legislators aren't picking their voters. That can't happen. Many other states have done this and have done it successfully. In Arizona, you see that Democrats have a little bit more power than they would have if the Republicans just controlled the entire redistricting process. And conversely, in California, the Republicans have a little bit more power than they would have if the Democrats had just controlled their redistricting process. It's gone to federal court, it's gone to the Supreme Court. This is an allowable thing to do, and it's something that is a model in other states of how we can create a fair system that respects the views and the wishes of all citizens on different sides of the political spectrum. And that is truly the way that we need to build our democracy in Michigan.
I'd like your views on term limits.
I am opposed to term limits. Term limits have created a situation where lobbyists run Lansing. What happens is our legislators, who are the people's representatives, let me linger on that for a second. The people elect representatives to represent them in Lansing. And those people's representatives don't know their way around the building, let alone the budget. Who knows their way around the building and the budget? It's the lobbyists, right? And so who runs the show in Lansing? I've seen this with my own eyes. I have seen lobbyists packing committee hearings. I've seen their outsized influence, and until we can change that, term limits are devastating to the political process in Michigan. There's been a lot of proposals out there, things like combining the term limits for the House and the Senate into one 14-year period, which you can serve in either chamber. There's been a solution brought up of saying if you want to run past your term limits, you would have to go out and get 25% of the voters to sign a petition that says they want you to keep on going. But those are sort of bipartisan solutions that have been talked about. I'm open to any of those. I'm also open to the elimination of term limits because I think it would be devastating to our state to continue that practice. And I'm not just saying that because I'm running for office. If I could eliminate term limits today and Jeff could continue on in the House, I would be happy with that.
Thank you.
People do not believe I'm the oldest candidate running for public office in their district. So there's going to be a drive to reform term limits. The one that I'm in favor for is just to increase it slightly, give people 5 terms in the House, which would equal out to about 10 years. I've been talking to people in and around Lansing, and they're starting to build a steady coalition about that. Because at the end of the day, it's what Yousef is saying is true. A lot of legislators come in and out, and they don't know anything what they're doing. Last night I was reading 89 pages of the budget, trying to understand everything I can. So if I receive your vote and I represent you, I can understand the budget the best I can. And one thing that I can assure you is in the era of term limits, where everything's short term, is that I won't be bought out. I won't give lobbyists time of day. I know a lot of people see that as disbelief, but it's trying to raise the bar for what we elect as representatives, because when you get to know some of them behind the scenes, you see some of them truly do not have their district's best interests in mind. And so I still appreciate term limits in a small aspect, because at least you know eventually they're going to see the door. But at the end of the day, it's just to do a slight bump up. And so that way a legislator can stay there a little bit longer, because there's a legitimate reason why we have term limits, because some people would just be there for 40 years and this wouldn't work for their districts.
I just want to ask a 30-second follow-up, and then I'll give it back to the floor. How do you feel about a part-time legislature, just as a follow-up to sort of the structural issues related to legislature and term limits? 30 seconds.
Be absolutely awful. Michigan has been beaten back on so many different elements that we need the legislator working hard to come up with solutions. A lot of other states use a part-time legislator, and that's great for their states. But I feel in Michigan, our current state of education is not doing as well. The environment's not doing as well. Our infrastructure isn't doing as well. We need the legislator in there working as hard as humanly possible to try to deliver solutions that are going to be giving us a better future.
Same question.
So to me, this is an issue of equity. This is about who can represent us and who can afford to be elected to office. When elected officials are not paid and they're not given an opportunity to serve, only the wealthy can serve, and because they're the only ones that can afford to. I don't think that is what the state that we want. I think the full-time legislature is an important aspect of our democracy, and I would defend it.
Thank you. Yep.
My question is, aren't there enough qualified teachers to staff the schools in Detroit? Because I hear that now anyone can teach without qualifications, which I think is scary. And there are teachers looking for jobs, so.
Yeah, so the way I see it, this is part of a race to the bottom. A race to the bottom for wages, a race to the bottom for our educational standards in Michigan, and this is just part of it. This is a ploy to help continue to underpay our teachers, because part of the problem in Detroit is if you were a teacher, would you want to go work in a district where your paycheck may not be coming in 2 weeks, where you're being underpaid, where you're working in deplorable conditions? Probably not. And so how do they open up the door to more people to work in those conditions Their solution was to make it so that non-qualified teachers can teach. Why didn't they try to address the ultimate problems, which are that teachers don't know that they're getting their paychecks, that they're not getting paid enough, that the children and the teachers are teaching in deplorable conditions? That's how you solve the problem. It's not by trying to undercut and continue that further spiral and race to the bottom for the Detroit public schools and for our state.
Question. I have friends that work at DPS. I attend the Eastern University of Michigan that educates educators. One of the things that Eastern stepped up and did was told their students that they couldn't teach at EA schools because those schools are awful, they're horribly ran, and the people that talk to that are fighting in DPS, they love their job. And what we have to do, and that community has to do, is they have to build stability, because when you have 6 emergency financial managers managing that school district, that's going to create instability. When you have teachers leaving mid-semester, students leaving mid-semester, the largest class sizes in some cases in the nation, there's going to be instability. So when you look at having uncertified teachers, that's the way for Republicans to try to get back from, you know, the education community, showing that we're going to stand up against the EAA and a bad policy. Every time you try to stand up, there's always going to be some kind of backlash. So what we have to do is stand firm, be against any kind of emergency manager school district, because that's not going to get us anywhere. And we have to evolve society to back how it used to be, where if it was a student's fault if you didn't do well, and not blame the instructor, because instructors have a hard enough time as it is. And every time I get a phone call from my friend that works in TPS, you know, they always tell me about something broken, something absolutely awful, and we're trying to solve that.
Yeah, for both candidates, what is your biggest weakness as a candidate?
Too big of a heart. I stay up to the wee hours trying to talk to as many people, trying to read as much information. There's countless times where I just pass out holding my tablet, having my laptop in my lap, and having a notebook. And so when you have a big heart, you put a lot of the stuff on your shoulders, and sometimes it can lead me to be a little bit grumpy when there's people that don't believe in a productive change, a productive solution. And so how you address your biggest weakness is making your strength. And so if you can show people your heart, you show people your soul, show who you really are, you know, maybe they'll level with you on one bill or another bill, because there's a lot of bills that haven't gone our way in the last 10 years. Progressive values have been continuously under attack, and you know, to some issues in just 1 or 5 issues, it's impossible. We've lost on 30 issues, we've lost on 50 issues. And so, you know, it's trying to make your weakness your greatest strength, and mine is having too big of a heart.
Great. So when I served as chair of the board in 2013 and 2014, there were some very difficult decisions that the board had to make. Appointments, budgetary decisions, and so forth. And as chair, I rolled up my sleeves and invested my full energy and soul and heart into those decisions, because I knew that they were decisions for the community. Because I was so invested, and because I gave my entire self to that process, it was stressful. It was stressful for me, it was taxing on me physically. And this is something that not everybody knows, but I actually ended up getting very sick as a result of the stress. Like I got a really bad cold, which ended up in the virus actually attacking my heart, and I went to the hospital. And I think that was largely due to the amount of stress that I was under as chair of the board. So my investment can sometimes be go beyond what might be reasonable, and so that's something that I have to work on as an individual, is managing my stress and being part of the process and being invested in the process, but also being a human and being a citizen and being a member of society, because I haven't been able to go out with my friends. I haven't been able to live a normal life because I've been so invested for the last 6 years, and in particular during those 2 years while I was chair.
Are there any further questions from the floor at all, from anybody? Going once, going twice.
So close.
Excellent.
You guys have focused a lot, I think rightly, about a number of the ways in which Michigan policies has left the state lag behind others. Could you guys address any ways in which you see opportunities for Michigan to become a national leader and the areas in which you think that could happen?
Am I first?
Yeah.
So one of the sparks that inspired me to become involved in politics was that in a situation where there is not much light, when you're in the darkness, when you don't see a way forward, that's where I thrive the most. When the situation looks bad, when Lansing is bearing down on low-income families, on local governments, on working families in Michigan, those are the opportunities that I thrive in because I find the opportunity in the darkness and I push forward towards the light. So the way I see it, it's all opportunity. We have only forward to go. And we can get caught up on the policies of the past, we can get caught up on how messed up it's been in Lansing, or we can refocus our vision and look ahead. Define the vision that we want for our state and stay true to our values. And then just go there. Just go there and let them keep on screaming and yelling and trying to do their worst, but together they can't beat us. Together we continue marching forward and move the state forward. So out of the worst situations, we find the greatest opportunities.
10 years we're going to have the greatest water source, best water in the nation. That's going to drive people from all over the nation to want to come live in Michigan because everywhere else in the world is getting hot and it's starting to dry up. You hear the jokes about California, you can't get a glass of water. It's actually true. Talk to someone over there, it's tough. And so the positive things that are coming out is that we're starting to prioritize our water infrastructure and we're starting to care about our environment more. One of the things that we do have is we have a bare bone infrastructure for great industrial capacity. We were the arsenal democracy at one point in time. A lot of people do remember that. And so what we need to build that arsenal towards is to a green arsenal. We want to be the leaders in the greatest green projects in the nation, maybe be a model for the world, build the best solar, build the best wind, and have the cleanest water. That's going to drive people to the state. That's going to have people that want to stay here. There's so many, half the students that graduate high school leave here. We need to have them stay here. And it's using our natural resources to our benefit. I mean, we have the Great Lakes. We have all the wealth in the world in our backyard. And it's ensuring that people believe that we have the best water, we have the best green technology, and it's using our existing infrastructure, reformatting a little bit, and making it become something that we can use in the new millennium and into the future.
Excellent. Well, thank you both. Are there any further questions at all before I just sort of give my 10-second concluding remarks? All right, seeing none, well, I want to thank both candidates for coming out, talking about their values and what they think is important for this district. I think we're really lucky in Washtenaw that we can have such quality candidates coming up throughout the election cycle. And so whatever choice people make, I know it will be a good one. So if we could just give a hand to our candidates.
And I'm sure both of these gentlemen have many volunteer opportunities that you could help them with if you've been impressed by their views and policies here today and you want to help them get elected. Where do they go to connect with you, Steve?
There's two ways. You can get my cell phone number. I can talk to you immediately after here. If not, look us up at Facebook, Stephen Kwasny, Kwasny for state rep. And you can get in touch with one of the volunteers. And I understand, I do run a massively digital campaign. I understand not everyone is in the digital world. I'm happy to give you cell phone, email, even blow a smoke signal your way if that's what it takes.
Okay, and Yousef, how do they connect with your campaign?
So I'll make it easy. Either you can go to voterabhi.com, R-A-B-H-I, or you can sign the sheet in the back. Lizzie's back there, my girlfriend, with my yard signs and the sign-in sheet. If you want a yard sign, you can take one home as well. Just make sure you sign sign that one out. And then we have the rest of our team. Sonia's here, Michael, who's an intern with the Sierra Club, volunteering with the campaign, and Stephen in the back is our field director.
Okay, so lots of opportunities. Thank you very much for coming. I just have a few announcements, and then I'll open it up to if any of our members have any announcements they want to make. The Washington County Democratic Party is having their annual dinner at Skyline High School on June 18th from 6 to 9 p.m. I'm sure it's catered by Hedja, which if you've enjoyed her food before, I'm sure that will entice you to come out again. Yes,
is that a Saturday or Sunday?
It is a Saturday. Excuse me, I said June
18th.
18th. Okay, yeah, June 18th is a Saturday. And then please go to our website. We are keeping up pretty well on the website in terms of activities going on, and there's something going on constantly with fundraisers for candidates up and down the ticket, and also events. We do have our July meeting coming up, which is July. Skip to August already. Is it the 8th? No, July 9th. July 9th is the Saturday. And at that meeting, we have two things going on. We're going to start a little bit early. We're actually going to start the meeting at 9:45. We'll still have our coffee and things laid out at 9:30, but we're going to start the meeting at 9:45. And we have an Ann Arbor, a former Ann Arbor resident who's now moved to New York and co-founded a group called climatemobilization.org, and you can read about them at climatemobilization.org. Margaret Klein, who grew up here in Ann Arbor, and she's going to tell us about her organization and what they're doing to mobilize the government and citizens towards solving our climate change issues and problems. So that'll be interesting. And then after that, following that presentation, we have our city council candidate forum. And I believe there are three, correct me if I'm wrong, Sabra, three contested races?
That's right.
Three contested races. So
in the primary.
Right, in the primary. And so we do have quite a few candidates who will speak, and we'll run it similar to how Jelani ran this, although Tracy Vandenberg and I are the moderators of that. I'm not sure we're going to be quite as tough as Jelani was with that clock. He was. He was impressive. That is a good. That is a good description. He was impressive on the clock. But we'll try because, of course, that event will have more candidates. So I know it's July and it'll probably be hot and sunny, but we do appreciate you coming out, and we have a lot of work to do. And I do want to also make a personal plug. I've never been on the ballot before, but I am running for precinct delegate in the Burns Park neighborhood. My opponent there is Doug Scott. However, the good news is there are 5 openings, and 5 of us are running. So come out and vote for us all. So I saw Larry Kirstenberg the other night. I said, Larry, I'm on the ballot. He was very impressed. So anyway, Dave, you got a comment?
Yeah, I want to make a special pitch for the county party dinner on the 18th. Our goal is to raise enough money to open a local campaign office this fall. As Debbie has indicated, there have been serious problems with national organizing efforts here, the so-called coordinated campaign. What we want to do is raise umpteen thousands of dollars at a staffed office so we can go door to door, pass out lids, and make phone calls using our own priorities and our own eccentricities. Because a lot of people from the national come in here, they don't even know where they are. So please come to the dinner, or if you can't come, at least give us money. Thank you.
Okay, and we also do have the 4th of July parade will include all of our candidates, and the Ann Arbor Dems walk in the parade too. So if you want to be a part of that, please let Mike Henry know. And following the parade, there is a barbecue at the Liberty Street Park. Is that called something? It's called
Liberty Plaza.
Liberty Plaza. Okay, and they barbecue and have beer donated, and burgers and dogs and that. So that's a lot of fun after the parade. So there's something going on all the time. Nobody needs to sit home and do nothing this campaign season. And there's always knocking on doors if you're of that ill, although not today for me. Okay, I'm going home to a little 2-foot pool party. I don't think it's going to be big enough for me. But my daughter-in-law thought it might be too hot to go to a real swimming pool. I didn't get that.
Real swimming pools are gross.
Yeah. All right, thanks very much for coming, everybody.
Oh, wait, one more comment.
If you enjoyed our breakfast and you have time, and you have a little bit of money, put it in our donation bag.
I just had a quick announcement to make.
Sure.
I'm Stephanie, and with Clean Water Action, actually. My office is right down the road there. And once a month I host an activist night at my home. And it's the third Thursday of every month. I know that's only a week away, the third Thursday coming up, but it's every month. You're more than welcome. I have flyers here on the table. We're doing a cookout, a barbecue this Thursday, ladder ball, beanbag toss, all that good stuff outside. And we want to get people together in the community to talk about the Democratic Party and the election and the future of Michigan. So I have some flyers here with the address. I'll just put it on the table. I'd love for y'all to come by, or you can just go to the Clean Water website and all the information is